Hello everyone. So this is going to be a video comparison of Erasmus and Machiavelli. Erasmus lived at a time when Europe was going through cultural and social revolution. So he didn't really believe in the use of force and violence. It was more about virtue, ethics, and education. He really pressed on the issue of education and educating a prince for their leadership role. Machiavelli, on the other hand, was living in a time when there was a lot of turmoil. There was a lot of treachery, war, and instability. And he believed that in order for a ruler to maintain power, they had to be a tyrant. So that's the reason as to why their philosophies were basically a little bit different, uh, opposite extremes. They did have certain similarities in their philosophies, on one of them being that it is much easier to rule in a monarchy because you are sure of who's going to be the next leader. And then the other principle that I think they both agreed on is that it's not easy ruling over people that are not accustomed to your leadership, or maybe it's not good to rule over people that don't want you in power. So in order for you to be able to make the people um, look at you as a leader, both of them had different views on how to get it done. Erasmus was more about trying to cultivate relationships with people, while Machiavelli was more about trying to put people down at whatever means possible, in my view. Now, Erasmus has a quote that says, "The mind has control of the body because it is wiser than the body, and so should a prince be wiser than his subjects." It would not be good if you had a ruler or a prince or a king or a queen that was in a leadership position and they happen to be dumber than their subjects, because it's basically the subjects would be basically ruling the kingdom and not the prince, and this would cause basically a conflict within our relationship. So it is important to educate a prince from a young age, and if someone is going to be a leader, it is very critical that they seek wisdom, just like King Solomon in the Bible. And Erasmus also talks about this in a later example. He also talks about a king considers that his greatest asset is the wealth and well-being of his subjects. That's on page 28. When you're in a leadership position, it's not good to look at maybe enriching your subjects or the people that work for you. You have to look at them like they're a part of the system that you need. If you look at them like they're just disposable assets that you can replace at any time, it becomes hard to cultivate a relationship of trust with the people that you need to help you rule. So they're basically like you have to have a good counsel, and you have to make sure that the people that are helping you in the leadership position are well taken care of. When you take care of the needs of your subjects, it makes leadership very easy, and it brings harmony in the leadership process. And then Erasmus had a Christian based theology and principles, talking about the qualities of God, total wisdom, total power, and total goodness. And then he says, make it your business to acquire wisdom. So anyone that is aspiring for a leadership position, in this case, talking about the education of a prince, wisdom is very important when you want to lead people, because with wisdom comes a lot of things that are just added into it. When you have wisdom, you're able to know how to lead people. You're able to be, you know how to judge. You know how to make judgments. You're able to conceive. You're able to even know something before it happens. You're able to look into something, and you're able to like actually conceptualize. You know. So wisdom is very important in leadership. When you have leaders in power that are foolish, um, it can cause a lot of problems. And then Erasmus also talks about the need to understand that the state is in your trusts, and you have to hand it over in a better position than you actually got it. So when you become a leader or ruler, everything that's within your principality is under your trust. You don't just take to use for your personal gain or your personal benefit or for your family's benefit. Of course, yeah, the prince has to enjoy life from some of the taxes that are collected and all that, but spending too much wealth, too much opulence, too much luxury is not good for the prince because it makes them, it kind of makes you lose touch of reality. And then the people that are at the lowest or in the middle or whatever are not able to relate with you because you don't understand their problems. So basically, it's good to understand that the state is basically in your trust. And then when you have dedicated yourself to the state, you are no longer at liberty to live in your own way. You must maintain and cultivate the role that you have taken. So when you become a leader, when you become a prince, when you become a king, you can't live life the way you want because you're now basically a vessel of the state. And everything you do, everything you say is going to be criticized because the public basically um, you, you're like the guiding force for the public. The public looks up to you. So when you dedicate your life to the state, it's a life of service and it's a life of dedication. So you have to put aside your emotions, you have to put aside your personal baggage, and actually look at the state for what it is. It's not an easy thing, but it has to be done. And then Machiavelli believed in the use of force to achieve and maintain power. And basically, this depends on the principality that you're dealing with. It could be an inherited one, it could be something that was given to you. So he talks about the different principalities. And then he talks about how King Louis lost, I think it was Lombardy, where he says, anyone who enables another to become powerful brings about his own um, ruin. So I think King Louis, I think, made an alliance with the Pope and I think Spain to help him with his conquest. And he made an alliance with, I think he enabled the church to have power. And this is where Machiavelli comes in to say anyone who enables another to become powerful brings down his own. So he does not believe in building people to actually become better leaders or anything. So when you're in that leadership position, you have to make sure that you do everything that you can to make sure that nobody contests your leadership at any time. And then when it comes to republics, on the principality of republics, I think Machiavelli believed that total destruction and direct rule were the best way to handle republics, where he says republics have a greater vitality and more desire for revenge and do not forget easily. So this is the reason they need to be destroyed or governed by direct rule. That's on page 18. So he basically believed that when you conquer people that are free thinkers, people that live in freedom and democracy, or people that are not really under any kind of basically people that are just doing their own thing, it is better to just destroy. So the destruction brings fear, and then the fear brings, in his view, that when people are scared of the destruction that's happened, they're automatically going to be drawn to just accept the leader that's in power. And then he also Machiavelli also talks about being a tyrant, which was in contrast with Erasmus. Erasmus was not about um, tyrannical leadership. Now there's a guy called Romero de Orco. I think it's Romero de Orco or Romero de Orcho, who helped Duke Valentino establish order through violence and cruelty. And then the ironic thing about it is that Cesare Borgia killed Romero de Orcho because the public was actually getting really, resentful and hate was starting to build up towards the people in power. So the very same person that ordered Romero to go and do all the violence is a very same person that killed him. So it's a very, very ironic thing where this is basically like Cicero Borgia was basically just using people. He didn't really care. As long as you do what he wants, he can just get done with you at any time. This is like an example of like a tyrant. A tyrant is not someone that you can trust. He's not someone who cares about his subjects. He can tell you to do something. He or she can tell you to do something, and when you're done with it, they can just get rid of you at any time. So that was kind of like how Machiavelli was kind of like looking at the tyrannical side of leadership. And basically, it would not be good to say that Machiavelli was wrong or Erasmus was right. I think at the time that Machiavelli was living in, I think being a tyrannical leader would make sense because it would be really hard to rule people in an ethical position, people that are not willing to be ruled. And then Erasmus was more of like, you have to educate a prince from a young age. There has to be harmony, there has to be peace. And he also believed that if there was going to be a situation where bloodshed was going to be involved, it would be better to abdicate. And on the other hand, Machiavelli was not about that. And we clearly see this when Borgia was trying to take power, his strategy, because Borgia was a son to, I think, Pope Alexander. And that what scared him was that when in case his dad died, the next pope that would come in would try to write off his accomplishments. So he did four things, of which three worked, as the book says. So he wiped out the ruling elite families so that the new pope would not restore them to power, which is in contrast to Erasmus of it's better to abdicate than to actually cause bloodshed. But Machiavelli believes that violence actually works. And then the second thing that Borgia did was to win over the Roman nobles and clergy in order to checkmate the new pope. The third thing that Borgia did was having a college of cardinals well disposed towards him. The reason he wanted to have all these three things in place was so that in case the new pope was to come in, he would actually have influence in the voting and selection process. And then he wanted to extend his power and sphere of influence so that he would not need to make alliances with outside forces because he would have a military that was big enough to do his bidding. So he was able to achieve three of the four strategies. But when his dad died, shortly after, he himself got sick and he also passed on. So that's just the philosophies.